You know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Often touted as the fastest race cars in the world, Formula One has inspired countless generations of racing hopefuls to reach the top. And with the World Championship belonging to Dutchman Max Verstappen for the past 3 years, it seems fitting that this year we take these incredible machines to his home track. So let's get ready to watch the Majors Dutch Grand Prix, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Zandvoort sat in obscurity for a long time before Max's rising star brought it back to the fore, so let's get a better look at this place with our track guide. Welcome to Circuit Park Zandvoort. This legendary track directly to the west of Amsterdam and a stone's throw away from the shore of the North Sea has seen more than half a century of racing history. After a brief period of being closed, it was rebuilt in the 90s and then given a huge facelift in 2019 to see the return of Formula One. It retained its 4.25-kilometer length and 14 turns for the Grand Prix course, while the other three versions also stayed mostly unchanged. But the biggest adaptations were the additions of steep banking in Hugenholtz and Luyendyk. The unusual progressive banking in Hugenholtz in particular stands out as it brings the oval racing staple to the twisty side of motorsports and has produced action-packed results. Meanwhile, Luijendyk's new camber means that this corner is now easily flat out in pretty much every car and gives even better chances to try and overtake into the famous Tarzan. That said, passing is notoriously difficult at this highly technical track. And while it's much slower than its original guys, it still has some frighteningly fast corners, including Givlock. If you're brave, the Hans Ernst chicane can sometimes offer chances to sneak by someone, but it can often become a clumsy wreck if you're not careful. The amounts of cash poured into the upgrades certainly produce more than just a fresh coat of paint. The spectacular racing put on by everything from open-wheelers to touring cars and sports cars is almost never dull. It's no wonder the Dutch fans come out in droves when the green flag waves here. Well, the modern version of this track very much is a unique one in the world of road racing, Joey. Not many places have this steep a banking.
No, it's a really, really neat track to go to. It's 13 turns, 2.671 miles, or just a tick shy of 4.3 kilometers. And you were mentioning that banking. It's actually apparent in two different corners, turn number 3 and then also turn number 14, the very, very final corner, which is really flat out. So it's kind of neat to see that NASCAR mentality be implemented in other worldwide tracks. But I'm really looking towards sector number 2. That's turns 4, 5, 6, and 7. I think that's pretty much a roller coaster section through this where the elevation goes up and down and there's lots of bending corners that you can't really see beyond. So if you're not directly on the racing line, these cars are extremely fast and you might find yourself actually in the grass quite easily. So that's kind of the sector that I'm looking towards, but I think your best passing is turn number 1 and then that chicane down there, the Hans Ernst chicane, turns number 11 and 12 today, Joe.
Certainly is usually single file. Otherwise, it's tough to pass here. And passing will be important in the championship because we've got two major players that are up for it. Now, technically, there could be some others behind them that come and steal the championship away. but we'll have to wait and see if we have any unexpected incidents that maybe change the picture, as Fredrickson and Ericsson are the two that you need to watch out for, have been the quickest much of the season. Garen Batten, who is here, is within mathematically a chance, but he has not been looking like his speed is good enough for him to try and challenge them today. Otherwise, watch some of those battles farther down in the top 10, because they'll be trying for every position they can in a race that sees some specialists have an opportunity to jump upwards. They also have a teams championship, though, in this series, Joey. So why don't we take a look at that?
And really, it has been dominated by that pairing, actually more than a pairing. It's SimRace Sweden Esports Pro, 1,000 points ahead of everybody else. Fusion Gold in that second place position, a few hundred points back to Dog Bear Bite. Those are your top three. Grizzly TFR and Ubox Goody also involved inside the top 5. The 9 teams in this team standings here include Easy Grass Yorkshire, Sapphire Sim Sport, Evolve Sim Sports, and Satellite Racing.
Now, before we get to the qualifying session in a bit, we want to mention our sponsor, the Majors Garage. It's the home of free Baseline Plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more by simply clicking on our link in the description below. Also, if you use our special discount code MajorsGSRC, you'll get 10% off. And our charity this round is Best Friends. Best Friends is a nonprofit organization that operates the nation's largest sanctuary for homeless animals and provides adoption, spay or neuter, and educational programs. For more information, check out our link in the description below. And I know both Joey and I are big animal lovers, so this one definitely important to us. Love to see them helping out there. And, I talked about the difficulty in passing on this one, Joey. This qualifying session starting in just a little bit. This could be really important to the race.
Yeah, it's round 10 of 10 here, 72 laps. We're about to kick into that qualifying session that Joe was just mentioning. We're in those Formula One cars. An open setup is always here in the Major Series. You got to bring your A game if you want to be the fastest. There is one spare car available. I do think the drivers are probably going to use that thing. The guardrails, the tire walls can be so close out here with the tremendous speeds that these cars can carry. Even just a small little mistake out there can send you flying off the racetrack at a very rapid rate of speed, and oftentimes you will find a wall or a competitor if you're sliding along the pavement.
All right, they have just started that qualifying session. Now cars getting out on the track. It's an open 20-minute session to set your best time and set the grid order. So it's not quite like what you see in Formula One with Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. But it's still going to be very important to get a clear bit of track and get a good lap time in around here. These cars, I mentioned, Joey, that they're definitely specialist cars, very unique with the hybrid systems. But more than that, just everything seems to happen so fast in them. I feel like this is going to be one of the biggest challenges the majors have thrown at our competitors.
Everything is a little bit cranked up to 11, call it, with these cars. You're right. The braking performance is immense. The aerodynamic grip is huge on these cars. The loud pedal, the go pedal, trust me, it gets that thing going incredibly fast at a very, very rapid acceleration rate. So it doesn't matter if you're in the slow stuff or in the high speed stuff. The margins are so narrow out there. So you're right. I think that if we're going to see any mistakes, it's going to become pretty abundant out here. And the drivers should try to keep it kind of reined in within those bumper bowling lanes, at least for qualifying out here, and then kind of get into it in the race.
Still waiting for the first times to be set from our drivers. We're expecting pretty much everybody to be running the soft tires, as they do have multiple compounds that they can run. There's 3 different compounds, the soft, the medium, and the hard, just like real F1. But since there is no tire limit on these machines, then obviously you want to try and slap on those softs, go as quick as you can, lower the fuel down as low as possible, and then send it out. And as we hop on board with Lynn Kinchlow, let's see what it looks like from on board these cars, just to show you how wild of a ride it is.
We always like highlighting Kinchlow's onboard. I think just between the virtual reality, kind of the rear view radar section that he's got up there, that's what that green box is in that halo. It's just such a cool, immersive experience for sure. And Kinchlow's coming up to this turn 11, 12, call it stadium chicane down here. It is very tricky, but man, Joe, these cars are fast, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the laps around here go by so quick. I remember, you know, when I first started racing in iRacing, this is one of the first tracks that I bought. You know, it was in the Skippy, and it takes 2 minutes to get around here. These cars circulating at 1:10. That is how quick these things go. It is just, there is no time to relax at any point on the lap until you get to that start-finish rate.
And remember, this is the new Scan out here. So this is not the old version. It's got the heavy banking over there in turn number 3. There's a lot of grip. There's all those extra curbs down there in that section right there that we were just watching, which is turns 9. This is turn 10 right here. Got to be careful about squeezing on the throttle. So I think that the speeds are just starting to creep up there. I wouldn't be surprised if we're in the 108s here soon.
So it looks like, I don't think this is a flyer for Fredrickson, because it looks like he's setting up, trying to get himself some clear air. And his competitor in the championship, Ericsson, is currently our fastest at a 109.543. So coming off the final corner, trying to use that banking to carry the speed down the front straight. Oscar's going to send it into Tarzan, braking hard to bring it down to the apex. And this is where it really starts to pick up here. It'll just be constant back and forth. And this is what I love, the progressive banking of Hugenholtz.
And that high line is the way to go. A little bit of a snap oversteer. He was just anxious to get on the gas. This is that roller coaster section through 4, 5, 6. This is turn number 7 right here down the hill. A little bit of a dab on the brakes into 8 here, but you see how fast and how committed you got to be all the way out to that exit curb. And oh, there's the tricky turn number 9. I think turn 9 and turn 10 are going to throw these drivers for a loop today.
The other thing they're also probably thankful for is that, unlike real Formula One, where as soon as you wreck your car in qualifying, you're done, here they can hop in a new one and keep going. So 15 minutes left. That'll be plenty of time for Oscar to try and make up for that mistake. But you don't want to waste too many opportunities out here. That is for sure. And of course, the track is going to continue to see rubber be put down and maybe pick up a bit of time. I don't think it'll be as dramatic as we often see in the real world, but could alter how the track drives as this carries on.
We watch Cedric Holbom right now, currently sitting provisionally 3rd. Still early times in qualifying right now. Plenty of laps for all of the drivers to go back in there, get that spare car, get a new set of tires, make sure to get the mind right, and go out there and try to lay down another fast one. Cedric is actually tracking about half a second better than what his previous time is with a 110.0. So let's see what he crosses the line with right here, a 109.95. So he does improve his time, but not his position.
Yeah, only about half a tenth quicker on that one. He's got to make up about 0.2 to get Sam Harper and put himself on the front row. Here's Garen Batten, who we're talking about. Actually not doing too bad in qualifying. He didn't look that great in practice. Maybe he was just hiding what is possible for him. Does not improve. That looks like that was a lap of him setting up. So maybe he's now on a flyer himself. Love the picture-in-picture we've got with the onboard showing how quickly it is from his perspective as we watch from the TV cameras. He's now down to 5th position as it looks like Daniel Holmer has beat him to that P4.
The fast times right now are all in the 109s. That's what the top 3 is. Garen Batten right now currently a 110.2. So let's see if this lap time can kind of sneak him into that maybe 9 bracket right there. There's that tricky turn 9 where we saw one of the drivers spin a little bit earlier, and then, oh my goodness, turn number 10. It's so tough. These cars don't have that traction control. They don't have the aerodynamics pushing down on them in the slow speed corners. And turn 9 and 10 is where you want to kind of get greedy rolling on the throttle, but the corner just continues forever.
Well, and not only that, with the hybrid systems, from what I understand, aren't they saying these things are probably in the range of about 1,000+ horsepower? So that right foot is controlling an immense amount of torque.
True, very, very true. You have to be careful with it, and if you don't spend a lot of time in Formula cars, these ones are finicky beasts for sure. You know, even I have not spent a lot of time in this specific car in iRacing. I think that's probably the case for a lot of these drivers. Now, they put in the practice for this race, but I wouldn't say that this is the one that they're going to go to when they hop in iRacing on the daily.
So as we watch Jesper, Oscar Fredrickson has now put in a lap, and he's within 1/10 of a second of our pole sitter. These two have picked up pretty much where they've left off. Is Jesper able to improve? I'm showing him tracking about 1/10 off of his best time. So unless he's got something phenomenal, and he doesn't because he has unfortunately gone off track, he's going to park it, take a spare car, get back out there in the next 11 minutes.
See if Mike Gillespie can improve his time, currently at a 1:11.5. 1:11.1, so yes, he does jump up to 15th place, move him up 3 positions for that number 43. This is Sam Harper here, the number 52 car, currently sitting in the 4th place position. He is in that 109 club right now. 109.77 is his fastest time. Looks like he's on another heater as well.
Watching to see how he's tracking, and it's going to be close. He's within 1/10, but he'll need some improvement on the second half of the lap. This is definitely a portion where you could do that with all these slower corners. As we switch over to Lynn Kinchlow in the meantime, saw him having a few troubles out there earlier, but the 44 sits in 9th. And wow, he is going to improve, if this is correct, by almost a full second. He'll cross the line. A 1:10.2. That's about 0.6 improvement. Still, that jumps him all the way up to P6.
Nice lap there from the number 44. I'm curious about this driver right here, Oscar Fredrickson. Looked like he was on a fast lap. He actually just lifted off of the gas right now. I think there was a little bit of traffic directly in front of him. Sam Harper jumped up to 3rd place with a 109.69. He was at a 109.77 before, so it seems like maybe the low 109s are where the really, really fast times are going to be. But I think if you can put yourself at a 109, you're looking very good for the track position to start this thing.
Still waiting on 3 drivers to set a time: Ernie Ludwig, Mark Redeker, and Michael Hogg. Hogg is the only one of those 3 that is out on track right now. They are not required to set a time. And I wouldn't be too surprised if some of the drivers that maybe feel less confident in the car elect to intentionally start at the back of the field just to try and kind of work their way through the race without pushing too hard. But we'll see if we get a time from them later on as we watch Josh Hampton now in 16th around the banking of Lion Dyke. He's also showing a massive improvement. Let's see what the timer shows. 1:10.2. So yeah, that will get him up to 8th. He needed that one. Wow, that was up from about 17th.
That was a huge jump there for that number 89 car. And let's see if Fredrickson can actually complete a lap. Between the early mistakes that we saw with the spin, there's a little bit of a lockup there in turn number 12. The track really dips away from the chassis and the drivers there, so it's a little bit of a confusing moment for the car to kind of figure out what the track is doing. Keeps it really, really narrow on the front straightaway here. Let's see what he puts down to 109.12. That's going to go to the top of the board.
Wow. Jesper's now got his work cut out for him. That was a huge jump from Fredrickson. Really nailed the lap. The 9:55 is the 37 rather, is looking like he is on an out lap currently. And coming down into that Hans Ernst chicane. Yeah, this is another spot. I was thinking about it when you mentioned the banking. This also has at least a little bit of camber in there. Not as dramatic as what we've seen from what they've added to the 2 corners they changed back around 2020. But still a little bit to try and help you try and keep the car planted. So he'll take off on his flyer as he comes down into Tarzan. Another one as well with a little bit of banking.
I'm going to give Zandvoort a lot of credit. This was a racetrack that me growing up in North America did not know a lot about. You know, I started following Formula One more in my early teenage years. I didn't grow up on the international racing. And I think that Zandvoort in the last, call it decade, has done a tremendous job to attract more racing. They've done a tremendous job to repave the circuit, update the circuit, and they've made it so exciting. I would call this a track that I would love to go and even visit and just watch a race at.
I do love this latest version of it. The previous one, without the banking in those corners that it has now, is a little finicky and maybe not as much fun, but now it really has kind of returned to what it used to be, because interestingly, before this layout, it actually was just a lot of long, wide open sweepers for much of it through basically the 50s into the 80s before it had a brief shutdown and had to be truncated due to losing some of the land. As Jesper's going to hold it tight to the inside, and he does improve, but it's not enough to take the top spot back. 7 minutes left on the clock. Maybe 2 more quick runs, I think, that he could get in if he wants it.
Checking out some of the other cars going around the racetrack here, I do have to chuckle at times, because we were talking about it pre-show, Joe, that you can't use trading paints on these cars, so you're kind of limited to what you can do. But here is obviously an orange McLaren-themed Mercedes. I think I saw a blue and yellow, maybe Honda Spoon-themed Mercedes earlier. It just kind of puts a grin on my face when I see the stuff.
That might be Honda, but I think the blue and yellow drivers are Swedish
Correct.
drivers. Yeah,
Correct. Yes.
Using some of those national colors to certainly show off their pride. Yeah, the papaya orange, as it's become known as. But we'll see if we have any papaya rules out here between drivers or not. As, Daniel Holmer on his team is certainly representing well. Man, just all the Scandinavian drivers this year. We talked about it last time out at Pocono. I just can't believe how much they've taken to this series and have started to dominate in 2024.
They have shown up and they have put their foot down on the championship on pretty much every race, and it doesn't matter what kind of track or car. They're towards the front every single time. I think the event this year that stands out in my mind is the Formula Fords, where they just were in the rain, and it was between the two, Ericsson and Fredriksson, and they literally ran away with the thing, but they were fighting every single corner, side by side, over, under, back and forth. It was just so cool to watch them, but it just kind of puts it on display how much they were ahead of everybody else.
Speaking of displays, it seems like many of the drivers displaying just how tough these cars are, as we've seen a lot of spins recently. Tom Dreiling almost in classic brawn colors there on the car, just with a little bit of black on the front. But that was the old version of this car. This is the Mercedes, obviously, that they're driving. And that's what became that team, is the old Braun team back in Formula One in 2009 to 2010. Ray Griffin, where is he sitting right now? He's in 9th position. And the Papaya Orange that we had mentioned, he's on his 11th timed lap right now, and he's not showing terribly quick, so this might not be a timed lap for him.
Oh, and just a little bit too wide there in turn number 9 as we... Fredriksson really trying to... oh my goodness, it looks like maybe the end of Interstate 5 over here. But I think that these drivers with these cars, they've already reached pretty much the absolute limit of performance. So any little step over it, it's just going to result in a crash, in a spin. I don't blame them for going out and trying it, right? If you want to go faster, you're going to have to try to go faster at some point, and if the car can't take it, you're up against the limit.
And there's not much that you lose if you think you've taken the maximum out of it, to try and push it, see if that limit has been met. And unfortunately, it seems like it has for a number of drivers who just have overstepped their boundaries. Sam Harper coming around in that 5th position. And a 109.8 is not going to improve for him. Just about a 10th off of his quickest time. He goes and parks it. He'll have enough time to get back around for one more run, maybe 2, but it'll be tight. And Lynn Kinchlow here coming off into Kumho and then into Lyondike. He's in 10th position. Had a bit of a sad ending to his last run. He'll come down and across the line at 1:10.5 is not going to be any better for him. So if he's got one more lap in it, he better take it soon.
And I believe here, since this isn't an open qualifying session, these drivers should be able to basically run through the checkered flag. You can't start a lap once the checkered flag has fallen, but as long as you start it before, you should be able to complete that lap time. So I wouldn't doubt if we're going to see a lot of these drivers pretty much complete this one right here, but you got to be out of the pits with, call it, minute 30 if you want to be comfortable to start that next one.
Certainly, Holly McGowan, unfortunately, not going to be able to have time to get back out there, I think, unless he's very quick down the pit lane. Garen Batten, who we said was not looking good, has really turned things around, currently sitting in 6th spot and trying to make up about 2/10 to catch Sam Harper to crack into the top 5. This lap, actually, yeah, he would absolutely do that if he can keep this up and match his previous sector times here at the end of the lap. Takes it down through Hans Ernst. That's perhaps the trickiest part. Just one more braking event to go. Down into Kumho. And, he goes a little bit wide. What's it going to be? He lost some time there, and he's going to park it. Oh, right at the end, he threw away the great time that he had sitting in his lap.
And I don't think the reason why he jumped on the brakes right there as we watch Hakan Schutt is he needed to start a new lap. He had that 1x incident point, and he realized that lap was trash. He's just not going to be able to get around before the checkered flag starts. So it's going to be Garen Batten holding his time. Daniel Blomqvist comes around to 109.88. He does improve that lap time and moves him up to 6th. That moves Batten down to 7th.
All right, last opportunity for Jesper Eriksson. He's got to make up 0.187 of a second to take the pole back from Fredriksson. It will not mean any bonus points or anything like that, but it will mean track position unless he can get a very good start at the beginning of this race and beat Oscar down into Tarzan. Can he do it from here? I'm showing him right around where his lap time was. And remember, he needs nearly 2:10, so he's going to have a stunning second half of the lap.
This is that very slow, tedious 9 and 10 here. Looks like he's able to roll on the throttle very, very smoothly. And this comes up to the chicane here. Jump on the brakes, get over that curb. No lockups anywhere that I see. Only one real corner left. That's turn 13 with just that little breathe off of the throttle. And then back to the floor here, flat out through turn number 14. He's looking to beat a 109.12, and he comes into pit lane. He knew he didn't have it in it.
Just not enough right at the end. He was hovering around that 1/10 of a second under mark. So it would have been close, but he would have known better than we did about if that was going to be good enough. Josh Hampton, can he get in the top 10? A 109.7 is indeed going to put him into the top 10, all the way up into 6th at the last time of asking. We'll head over to Jeff Schmeier now, the next to be able to complete his qualifying. He's in 13th. He started off this season fantastically with a victory at Daytona. Could he wrap it up with likewise? It'll be hard from this far back, and it'll definitely be hard as unlucky number 13 will be his start position.
That was pretty much right on top. His fastest was a 10.4. That was a 10.46. So looking pretty consistent for Schmeier.
That means that our grid is set. One thing we haven't addressed before we get to that is there's going to be live stewards like we saw back at Pocono. And much like you'll see in real Formula One, they can have full course yellows. Now, they will be a sort of a mix between a virtual safety car and a full course yellow, as they won't have an actual safety car come and pick them up. But the drivers will have to get together into the train, and then they will be released to go. And the biggest part of that is the strategy that tosses up, Joey, because the drivers will be allowed to pit under caution.
It's going to be a mixed bag for sure, and I think talking about that strategy will be interesting. Remember, you do have multiple tire compounds in these cars. We only saw those red tires, those softest tires for qualifying. Those are the fastest they go, but there are a couple available to the drivers.
Talk about that in a bit, because here is your grid. Oscar Fredrickson will start on the top spot with Jesper Eriksson, his championship rival, starting next to him. Cedric Holblum will be in third, as Daniel Holmer will be fourth. And you've got Sam Harper in P5, followed by Josh Hampton in sixth. Daniel Blomqvist got shuffled down to seventh late in qualifying, while Garen Batten will start in eighth. Top 10 will be rounded out by Ollie McGowan and Ray Griffin.
Lynn Kinchlow is going to start in 11th with David Baker in 12th. Jeff Schmeier in 13th with Hockenschut in 14th. Mike Lightly 15th with Jeff Cardamone in 16th. Jason Wallet starts 17th. Gary Thomas 18th. And then row number 10 is Ray Partridge and Tom Dreiling rounding out that top 20.
Last driver to set a time was Michael Hogg starting 21st. Mark Redeker and Ernie Ludwig will drive from the back of the field and see if they can make up for that lack of a qualifying time. Those three compounds that are available, they must use at least two of them during the race. They need at least one pit stop to make it to the end, but they cannot refuel during that. It is all down to the tires. Slightly warm track, but not too horribly so at 90 Fahrenheit, about 32 Celsius for them to deal with. But how will that affect the tires in the race itself? Two-stop strategy seems to be the most ideal from what we've been told based on the timing, but we could see some drivers try something else depending on cautions and depending on if they get stuck in traffic. Lights are now up as the green flag is prepared, and now the green flag is out, and Oscar has a horrible start. Jesper Fredrickson is well by him. Car struggling to get going. These things are so tough to get the throttle down. They'll siphon down into turn one. One car already off in the back, and I can't quite see if we had anybody else involved in that.
Garrett Batten just has contact with one of those blue and yellow cars. I believe that was Cedric Holbom there in turn number 2. But I tell you what, Batten had one heck of a start. He's already up 5 positions inside the top 3.
Unbelievable. Batten trying to get back into this one as we got a side-by-side battle between Sam Harper and Daniel Blomqvist. Sam's going to come out ahead as they plunge now down into the infield section of 8 and 9. We got a car spun off. That's Oscar Fredrickson. Oscar Fredrickson falling down the field. I don't see damage on the car, but this is going to be a Herculean effort to get back past Jesper Eriksson to take the championship.
And it was the exact corner that we saw all those mistakes in from him in qualifying as the field goes through turns 11 and 12 right here. It definitely gets narrow. Let's see if that traction event causes any more problems. Looks like the rest of the field has, in fact, survived lap number 1.
Wow. Things are looking interesting here from the start as we've had some major players already falling down to the back of the field. Josh Hampton now sitting in 7th position, lost one from where he started as we watch the easy grass Yorkshire driver weave around turn 3. In the meantime, we have a replay of Oscar Fredrickson and what cost him his 2nd position. Wheels in the grass, and that was all she wrote. Around it goes.
Exactly that, and just the cold tires on lap number 1. Sometimes you have to give up just a few percent and just kind of leave a little bit more margin for error. You saw how narrow that was. Oh, there goes another car. I believe that might have been Jeff Cardamone spinning around there in turn number 9, losing a rear wing on that machine as he slowly tries to get it rolling back on the racetrack. And now more problems in turn number 11. That's Daniel Blomqvist in the 988.
So multiple drivers of the Swedish contingent are already finding themselves set back early in this race. It tells you just how tough this car is. Josh Hampton back with him once again in that 6th spot as he hounds on Ray Griffin, but not close enough to try and attack him down into Tarzan. Remember, they do have DRS in these cars, just like the real ones. That is going to be activated at the end of lap 2. Let's take a look at the start, and here is Cedric Holbom coming up into the corner. Now, what happens with him?
It's here in turn 2, Joe. You see Batten on the inside, just slides a little bit up the racetrack, and really bad net code right there. That was all ghost contact. Holbom left enough room. Batten had it down to the inside. That's unfortunate.
So we do have a spare car if the drivers get damaged, but those looking like they're going to get eaten up pretty fast. Fortunately, it looks like Cardamone has a black and orange flag, so he has to come in and get that car repaired. But we're continuing to watch Hakan Schutt now here sitting in the middle of the field in 12th. Gain 2 since the start of the race. That's Gary Thomas just in front of him. Let's see if he's within 1 second to use the DRS on Gary down the main straight.
The one caveat about the DRS and this Zandvoort racetrack is just that the front straightaway is not very long. Sure, it gets up to nearly 200 miles an hour, but you just don't have that long straightaway to create the draft effect to really get the run into the brake zone. But I think where other passes happen is exactly like what we're seeing on the screen, is that this track is just so demanding. If there's a small mistake, people are crawling all over the gearbox.
Got a replay of Garen Batten. Wow. That was brave down along the wall, but he utilized his nearly perfect start just to a T. That was incredible stuff.
And remember, he had Fredrickson also go off in front of him after that little bit of contact. So from starting kind of middle of the top 10 for Garen Batten, he now finds himself in second place position. And when we look at the championship, I really thought it was going to be between Ericsson and Fredrickson. Garen Batten is sitting there in third, but he has now moved himself up into position. If those other two drivers have more problems, I'd definitely be looking at that 61.
Saw an attempt from Ray Griffin to try and pass on Josh Hampton down into turn 1, and it looks like he's not going to get it as we're watching Sam Harper just ahead of them. And Josh now set off to see if he can battle with him, because that puts Josh back to where he began this race. In fact, Griffin lost another spot to Jeff Schmeier just now, so Ray struggling a little bit. However, you notice something at the start. In fact, you can see it on the sidewalls of Jeff's tire. He's got a little bit of an alternate strategy.
Yeah, Jeff Schmeier in this silver car here, this number 30. Look at those tires, not only red wheels, but red sidewalls on those tires. He is the only car on a quote-unquote alternate strategy. He's going to have a little bit more grip in the first, call it, dozen laps right here, but those tires will burn off sooner than those yellow tires that everybody else in the field is on.
We've got a whole bunch of strategies laid out for us, but none of them have drivers starting on the softs. So that one is interesting. I would guess if he's trying a two-stop strategy, I would say middle stint in the mediums and end on the soft, just to cover off maybe a caution.
I think how the early parts of this race has unfolded, oh my goodness, look at Fredrickson try to get down to the inside. He's trying to kind of recover after that early mistake. He's got Schutt right in front of him, and then also Gary Thomas is kind of the lead of this pack. Oh, Hakan has a little bit of a lockup in turn number 3, but back to your point about the strategy, given Schmeier's good track position, I would try to extend as far as I can on those soft tires. I know it's going to be a tough task, but the further you extend it, the better off the position you are at the end of the race.
That's true. Well, is a big look down the inside from Hakan, and that's actually going to cause Thomas to go off the course, so both of them get the spot. Fredrickson now up into 11th. Unfortunately for him, he's a full 17 seconds behind Ericsson. He almost essentially needs a full course yellow so that they can back the field up to help him out.
He is hoping for one, and the possibility is there, right? We just got to have a multiple car incident out there, probably 3 cars or more. Oh my goodness, look at this. Homer trying to go around the outside of Garen Batten. We had talked about Garen's tremendous start of the race, but I think in terms of that pace, some of these other drivers, including this blue and yellow 987, might be a little bit anxious to get around this, call it, green and black 61.
Certainly would imagine he's in a hurry if he feels like he's got better pace than this. He doesn't want to be losing time to Jesper up ahead of him. Daniel still watching in from one of the more difficult places to try and overtake, but not impossible, as we saw down into that right-hander. It is theoretically possible down into there from what we just witnessed a little bit earlier, but coming back around. You talked about Hans Ernst sometimes being a place to pass. Not this time. He'll need to get closer than that.
Curious watching these two. It seemed like Garen was pretty fast in that middle sector, and even in sector 3 was actually able to kind of extend the gap over Daniel Homer. So I wonder if it was just maybe a small mistake out of Garen that allowed Homer close enough, but the DRS does seem pretty strong here down the front straightaway. Josh Hampton, Jeff Schmeier, and I believe this is also Ray Griffin. Wonder if Schmeier's got a problem.
It certainly seems like Griffin's been a little bit up and down lately. Lost 2 positions so quickly. Gets one of them back, getting by Schmeier. Now he's got Hampton just in front of him. But Griffin will have to sit tight, at least for the time being, as they work their way up through Schlotemacher and into Sheevlock. Very swift, sweeping corner here through this one. And this is where it breaks off from the old circuit. It used to extend on straight through there and have a little bit of a quick left to right, and then head up through a series of quick sweeping corners in amongst the dudes. Because this is a track that is right on the sea too. So off the racing line, it's probably going to be very dusty, dirty, and slippery.
This battle for what is second place has kind of closed up again. Maybe it was a mistake drawing them closer to each other, but it tells me that it's actually Batten starting to fall off a little bit. Here's the DRS. Batten goes defensive in the middle of the racetrack, force Daniel the long way around. That's not going to work. Let's see if the over-under. Look at the acceleration phase. Homer is right on the gearbox, but it is so tough to make a pass down here into NASCAR turn 3, as I call it. If you take that really, really low line, it just compromises the exit too much.
I wonder how Hugenholtz would have felt with you calling it turn 3. He's the guy that, he didn't design the circuit originally, but he helped with one of the redesigns in the very early days. And he's also the guy that designed Suzuka, believe it or not.
Now, that is very cool. Oh, my goodness, a little bit slow there from Batten as we're checking in on Baker. No, I think that Zandvoort has done a lot. I was mentioning it earlier. It is just a cool circuit, and being a driver, I think that driving this place looks like a lot of fun.
It does. It really does. It feels like it in the sim. I can only imagine in real life with the camber really helping you shoot through the corners in these high downforce cars as we now watch Jason Wallet. That's Lynn Kinchlow just in front of them. Lynn's down 2 from the start. Jason up 3. They've also got Gary Thomas not too far ahead, so it could be a bit of a 3-car battle brewing. Now, as we switch back to Homer, well, he still hasn't quite gotten by, but he's been threatening, and the DRS probably helped once again. If you're wondering what we're talking about with the DRS, and you don't follow Formula One, that stands for the drag reduction system. It's a little flap on the rear wing. They have the ability to open that flap on certain sections of the track, but only if you are registered within 1 second behind the car ahead within the detection zone.
It's a pretty neat little system. I think when DRS was first introduced, a lot of people thought it was probably too gimmicky. But just given how these cars race, you need to be able to promote passing. And here's an attempt right here. Homer's going to be on the wrong side of the racetrack. Let's see, does Garen fight it at all? No, he lifts off early, lets Daniel Homer through for that second place. I think that the damage is already done. It was about 5 seconds when they started fighting. Now that gap between first and second is 9 seconds.
Wow. It continues to grow. And for Jesper, that is great news. This will be his first championship if he can bring this one home. Looking back from Daniel now at Garen Batten. Is he looking back at you? That I was going to say, okay, I didn't think that was Daniel Homer's view there because we didn't see Garen Batten as close behind him as he should be at this stage. This is those two battling for P2. Also, they're pulling away from Sam Harper. It's about 2 seconds back to him, so that's the good news, is they are free to fight.
think what's a little bit more concerning to me right now is actually the pace of Garen Batten. I understand that maybe it's a little bit slow this past lap, letting Homer by, but last lap for Batten was a 1:14.7. And let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next 6 cars behind him are all significantly faster.
Interesting. Okay, so looks like we've got our first penalty being handed out by the stewards, so still no caution that they've thrown. The 101 car will receive a 5-second post-race penalty, and that is Hakan Schutz. So this was for the incident on lap 6. I'm not sure if we saw that or not. Regardless, right now he's within 5 seconds of Gary Thomas, so he's going to have to want to grow that. We're only at lap 12, though, so still a long ways to go.
About Schmeier here, this is still that alternate strategy, and remember, we got 72 laps in this race. Given kind of the information that we've been provided over here, these red tires, they usually only last about 20 laps, maybe 25 laps at the most. So Schmeier's going to be about halfway through his stint. I think right about now is when he's starting to feel the performance really start to drop off, and instead of being on the attack with the aggressive setup and the more grip, it's going to kind of transfer more to looking rearwards and managing the pace, seeing how far he can extend those tires.
Well, and here's the other wrench thrown into that. Remember that our information is based on when the car is much lighter. They start with the fuel that they have to take for the entire race, so much, much heavier here at the start. So those 25 laps, you know, that might be a lot more of a struggle with the car completely loaded down. We'll find out soon enough. Like you said, we're about halfway through, and we get to lap 20 or so. If he's having a real hard time keeping it together or keeping pace, then we know that it didn't work out.
I do like, given what we've been provided once again, it shows that it's going to be a 2-stop race. It's going to be probably about 25 laps on the yellows, and then just split it into thirds even all the way through. 25 laps, 25 laps, 25 laps. That gets you roughly to 72 plus a few, right? I wonder if Schmeier will do red, yellow, red. And that's essentially the same exact strategy, just being on an alternate compound at a different time than everybody else.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, because I figure the last thing you want is if for some reason it'll be a little less likely based on what we've been seeing. We get a caution, a full course yellow late in the race, then that would bunch everybody up and eliminate any distance that you may have had. And if you're on the medium tire, then anybody who's on the soft could find themselves with quite a bit of an advantage. So it all depends, and we'll have to wait and see if that eventuality happens.
Hakan should. Yep, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just watching that, and he just ran straight up the back of one of the cars here. I believe it might have been Ernie Ludwig over there in turn number 13.
It was indeed, unfortunately, taking some serious damage. Hakan has a meatball flag. Ernie doesn't, but the car looks like it is damaged enough. He does have to come in. That puts him off strategy. I wonder if race steward's going to review that one as well. We'll keep you up to date if we see anything on that front. And, Ernie Ludwig has a black flag. The only reason I could think that suddenly popped up is maybe if he sped into pit lane.
You know, maybe, and there's also the possibility, too, because he drove it back in there, but that should have been a meatball flag. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Either way, both of the drivers involved are stationary in pit lane with heavy damage.
Yeah, I didn't see the black flag for his show up until, I think, a little bit later, so I'm not entirely certain. We switch now over to Daniel Blomqvist, who's definitely got some work to do. Lost 6 positions since he gridded up today. And he's got Thomas and Kinchlow in front of him. Before we get to that battle, though, let's take a look and see what happened here with Hakan Schutz and Ernie Ludwig.
Just right up the back.
Strange one.
So it's called target fixation, and these cars are just so gosh dang fast that Hakan probably wasn't sure if he was given the inside line, and he was looking at the car and unfortunately just drove right into the back of him, if I was to take a guess.
Yeah, it seems like a good theory to me. Lynn Kinchlow sandwiched between Blomqvist and Thomas. This is the fight for 11th right now. Aero wake. I mean, these might be the first generation of the ground effects cars in the modern era. That's what they scan, the 2022 cars here. But it still suffers from that aero wake, and it's going to be difficult to try and get by, especially on a track like this that requires so much downforce.
We were talking about the DRS. Oh my goodness, that was maybe even a little bit of contact between Kinchlow and Blomqvist. Just Lynn Kinchlow trying to let the car by. He lifted off the throttle pretty aggressively, and Blomqvist had his hammer down, still trying to accelerate. But talking about the dirty air and the DRS, that's exactly what the DRS is there for, right? If we're kicking up all of this dirty air because of these massive aerodynamic effects on the car, if nobody can follow, how do you promote the passing? You promote it by letting that car behind open up the rear wing and have that tremendous top speed. And there goes Gary Thomas, spin around in turn number 1.
Tires losing their best now. We're seeing a few drivers having some issues later on in the stint. Still got about 10 laps to go, most likely, unless you're going to try a 3-stop strategy, which, from what we're told, is the second fastest option, but you're going to have to be incredibly quick and make some overtakes, no doubt, to do that. By the way, we were given some information that it was indeed a speeding in pit lane penalty that caused the black flag for Ludwig. So that's what cost him in a little bit more time down in his stall. Watching Jason Wallet now. Looks like he got by Gary Thomas with his little half spin.
And this is Cedric Holbom and Tom Dreiling. Holbom's a little out of place. Remember, he started up there in third place position, I believe. Had that little bit of an incident with Batten in turn number 2. So he's on a recovery drive as things have tightened up for 4th place. That orange car, Ray Griffin. Sam Harper is the next car in line. Oscar Fredrickson. That's the comeback run that we've been looking at. We really haven't documented too many passes by him, but he finds himself in 6th with 2 cars directly in front of him for position.
And critically, remember I mentioned it was 17 seconds or something like that before? It's down to less than 16. So even with the overtakes, he's been gaining. It's not been much, but that's a good sign. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. And something that we seem to have missed is that Homer at some point has gotten by Batten. He is now in P2.
Yeah, we had briefly seen a little bit of that with Guerin kind of letting him by there going into that turn number 11 chicane. But I think that Sam doing a good job right now. I think all eyes are on Fredrickson. He still is in the situation that you had mentioned. He needs that full course yellow flag. He's going to try to make the pass down here. Really late on the brakes, but has to back out of it at the last minute.
Fredrickson gets on the power and has a little bit of wheel spin from what it looked like getting out of the corner. That costs him a few car lengths up to Sam Harper. Oh, and car off at the side of the track. That is Jeff Cardamone. And he's stationary there. Now that should not cause the full course yellow to come out, as it is just a single car, and it does look like he can get it going from what I can see on my screen. We'll continue to watch Sam Harper try to keep up with Ray Griffin. Ray, another one that's been having a very good day. Started this from 10th. He now sits in 4th. And if he can hold him off, he's got a very good point stay on his hands.
Let's see what's going to happen here. Fredrickson looking to the inside of Harper. Just gets the door shut there on corner entry. You're going to have to be a little bit further up alongside if you want to try to make the pass. And the further you move towards the front of the field, the tougher each one of those passes really starts to get. But I'm going to start to kind of lay a little bit of a storyline here. Garen Batten is still only 1 second behind Daniel Homer. Ray Griffin, who's the orange car at the front of this field, is only calling about 1.2 seconds behind Garen Batten. And these 2 cars are right on the heels. So I would say 2nd through 6th place, only separated by a few seconds on the racetrack. They are very packed close together.
And more than that, I was just checking Griffin's lap times. He's super consistent. Fredrickson Ooh, that was ambitious into sheave-lock. It's difficult to try and overtake through that turn. He had to back out of it. But Griffin, 14-4, 14-4, 14-4, 14-4. That's his last 4 laps right there. He has got this one nailed down. He feels comfortable in this car.
And those lap times, Garen Batten's last lap time of 14.6. So they are closing it in. Fredrickson going the long way around in the chicane. Finally gets the pass done on Sam Harper there. So Fredrickson continues his charge to try to get back up on that podium. But I think it's going to be a tough hole to dig out of, especially when his teammate is leading the race by nearly 13 seconds.
So Cedric Holboom, by the way, we saw him in pit lane. That was not a scheduled stop. He made contact, I think, with Mark Redeker while trying to lap him. So the car was slightly damaged, and it looks like he had to take his spare car because of that. He's back out now. That sends him down into 18th. Fredrickson now ahead of Sam Harper. I mean, this is the sort of thing that the championship does to you. You're willing to take risks. There's nothing left to lose at this stage. His only goal is to beat Ericsson.
I think this is Gary Thomas getting around Jason Wallet for 13th place. Get that done there in turn number 1. See a little bit of tire smoke there on the corner exit. I wonder if somebody just recently had an issue over there. But kind of back to your point about Fredrickson, Joe, I think that this is going to come down to probably a first and second place, just separated by a lot of track position. I do think that 955 has enough pace to get up on the podium for sure. It's only a few positions up the road, but I think that even if he finishes second, I don't know if it's going to be enough to claim the championship.
I don't think so either. Homer already 13 seconds behind Ericsson, even if he gets up to P2. It's a long ways to go. Ray Griffin, whoa, and off into the corner. Who was that? That was Harper. Sam Harper, and his car is upside down.
And it was Cedric Holboom who started it, Joe, and then I believe Sam Harper got involved in it. I think he was more of an innocent bystander in it.
Interesting stuff, yeah. So remember, it's more than 2 cars that will bring out the full course yellow, so that was very close to doing it. So I guess we can't completely count this one as being a full green, at least quite yet, because if we can have incidents like that amongst cars, then easily we could see them have to throw that full course yellow and pack the field up. Now, the good news is, for those that don't like those, they will be short. They will be very short, 1 or 2 laps, but they will have the cars going around, so we won't have to wait too long.
See, Fredrickson can use a little bit of his DRS. He is within range of Ray Griffin, but I believe the term is DRS train. Ray Griffin also had DRS behind Garen Batten, so just the closing rate for that third car in line was really difficult. We're going to get a shot of this replay here. So Sam Harper is going to come along, and there's going to be a car crossing the road who's broken, and Sam just has nowhere to go. Hold the brakes! And that didn't happen, unfortunately. Sam was an innocent collection there.
Hard to see what's happening coming into that corner. And these cars also really known for the visibility not being great either. They don't have to worry about the halo because you can visually remove that in the sim. But just seeing over the dash in front of you is kind of its own challenge.
And those corners are so fast and they're so short, they just come at you one after another. And if there's somebody crossing in front of you, oftentimes you don't have the time in order to react, in order to avoid them. So it's just really, really unfortunate for Sam Harper because I think he was having a good run.
This is on board with Oscar Fredrickson once again. Griffin pits in. So this might be a scheduled stop. I think we're finally getting to that period. We'll see if he puts those softs on and heads on out, as Jeff Schmeier also emerging. That looks like that was also a scheduled stop. 4.8 seconds, slightly slow by modern standards, but we'll see whether that is kind of what to expect here in iRacing.
See what this blend is going to be back as the orange number 14 comes back out onto the racetrack. And something these drivers also have to remember is that these are cold tires. Yeah, they've got the heat blankets on them, but they are not those warm tires you've been racing the last, call it 23 laps on. Just kind of have to be a little easy on them, and then you can get back at it.
Kind of a moot point, but Cedric Holboom has been black flagged for the incident he was involved in, but he's been sitting in pit lane taking repairs for a long time. He could still come back out on the track, but it would be a bit of irrelevant point by that stage. This is looking closer than before. Great run for Oscar, and well, that's why, because off into the pit lane goes Garen Batten.
I really like what I'm seeing from Fredrickson. This was our leader, Ericsson. He took that lap, number 23, come down pit lane, get those things swapped out. So I would expect just an easy two-stop strategy, split it into thirds. But I'm really curious about Fredrickson. Can he capitalize on the overcut right now, come out in front of Garen Batten? Does he pit on this lap, or does he actually choose to extend this?
So lap times are looking like high to mid 14s originally, but now maybe 14.1s. Since he's freed up, that could change it. A lot of moving parts in this one. But remember, he will be on worn mediums while Jesper Eriksson is on fresh mediums out behind him. So I guess we'll get a pretty quick answer because there's 2 seconds between them. So if Jesper's faster, it'll be blatantly obvious.
Let's see here. This is turn number 13. It's going to be flat out. Let's see if he dives to the right side of the racetrack right here. If he stays out, he's going to opt to stay out. I like this. I think that he's probably got enough pace to overcut with 2 laps, but I think that if you want to try something different, stay out, extend it, and it's just going to help your race later. It may not be an easy job right now, but later in the race, you'll have the advantage. Oh, he's going to get held up big time right there.
That was not good news. That was Mark Rediker, and he's going to allow Ericsson behind him as we follow Jesper. He's already a second up on what he was last time through. So, yeah, I'd say that the 37 is making time for Oscar. I almost feel like the overcut has to be extended. He needs a difference between the two of them or something to try and make it up.
Let's see what can happen. There's still a lot of racing to go, and there's only been 2 cars that are no longer on the racetrack, so lots of variables still out there, including lap traffic. Here's Lynn Kinchlow in the number 44. He's going to stay down to the bottom side of the racetrack, stay out of the way here, but Fredrickson, I think he was thinking about coming down pit lane that time, but he opted not to. There was a slow car directly in front. That would have just held him up way too much.
Well, speaking of holding up, it's a big squiggle from Ericsson coming off of Tarzan. Maybe this is the best hope for Oscar Fredrickson. If he can try and keep Jesper back longer, that will mitigate some of the advantage that those tires will have.
You can see just how much faster Ericsson is at this point in the race. This is 26 laps versus 2 laps on an identical compound, and it is just absolutely no match. I think, if anything, though, this is actually working out for Fredrickson because it's slowing down Ericsson. There goes Ericsson down to the inside. Let's see if he can put the power down nicely. It's neck and neck. I think he's going to have the advantage going into 11.
And indeed he does. He's fully ahead, breaking down into Hans Ertz. Jesper Ericsson, once again your leader. But remember, Oscar owes us a pit stop still. So this could still switch around by the end. And more than that, if we see a full course yellow, because this is always a threat, then they will bunch up and Oscar essentially could get a free pit stop.
Down on the brakes there, and I expect that Ericsson will just be able to really extend and start to pull away. Looks like they're running up on some more lap traffic, but Ericsson is firmly in control right now. I don't believe that anything Fredrickson can do in terms of pit stop strategy can really leapfrog him up. It's just putting him in better track position if a yellow flag does come out right now.
Everybody needs to be aware of that. We still haven't seen Oscar pit. David Baker needs to come in. Daniel Blomqvist hasn't served a pit stop, either as Thomas Wallet or Partridge. Everybody else has been in at least once, albeit some of those towards the back of the field pitted off sequence due to damage repairs that were needed. Garen Batten, what a story he's been on this one. He's on the softs, and he currently sits in 6th position. Looks like he's trying to gain on Daniel Holmer, who's on the mediums currently.
Drifted out to the wide side of the racetrack. I do like seeing that a lot of these cars that are still running out here are starting to kind of understand where the pace is and where the best passes are able to be made. It's kind of alleviating some of the nervousness for those fast drivers really trying to get through.
Just checked the lap times, and Batten is much quicker than Holmer on those softer tires. Oh, okay. Throw a cat amongst the pigeons. Oscar Fredrickson has put the hards on. He is probably going to try to go to the end of this race, if that is any indication. And could that saved pit stop help him out in comparison to Ericsson? Right now, he emerges onto the track about 24 seconds behind Jesper.
So, plain and simple, no. Because Ericsson still has one more stop to go, right? If Fredrickson was behind Ericsson and came in and did that stop, well, guess what? Ericsson is still going to be in front if he came in and did his stop right now and essentially copycatted the strategy. I think that this is a Hail Mary from Fredrickson and his only shot at it. So good on the 955 for trying something different. But if I'm Ericsson, throw that strategy out the window. Don't even focus what Oscar is doing. Just focus on your own race. Execute your strategy, and it will be the fastest.
Yeah, could use maybe a little bit of luck, I'm guessing, for him to be able to make this one work and get him the win. And to quote Eddie Cheever, luck is a bad strategy. So it's not necessarily the most ideal situation for Oscar Fredrickson. But after he found himself in trouble early on in this race, he kind of had to try and roll the dice and do something different.
And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. You know, I think it is his best shot at an alternate strategy. It's just that it's such a big hole to climb out of. It's a very good toss at it. It's just a lot of work. I think he's going to need a little bit of help, but we've still got, 40 laps of racing left. There's a long, long ways to go. Oh, what was that?
So Daniel Blomqvist, I think, having some connection issues or something. Not entirely sure, but yeah, it looked like, more than just connection issues, car troubles as he's in the wall and takes a tow. One car, so no full course yellow for that one. Feels safe in saying his day is over as he's missing both the front right and left tires.
Yeah, and I'm just happy that I think there was one car, it might have been Tom Dreiling, that was pretty much involved in it, but because of that internet stuff, there's no damage. And just as I say that, I give commentator's curse to Dreiling. He goes off the racetrack a little bit himself.
Blomqvist confirms in the text chat, game froze is what he reports. So it was a technical problem for him. So far, we've only officially lost, I think, Sam Harper. Cedric Holboom has been sitting taking repairs for quite some time, so he might be out of this race as well, just hasn't officially withdrawn his entry. Gary Thomas in the meantime, that is Ray Partridge behind him and Ollie McGowan. Ollie's actually going to get the spot off of Ray as he pulls off to the side, so Ollie moves to the top 10 now.
Come through this final corner here, turn number 14. All the banking. You pointed out some really cool stuff earlier, Joe. I think of turn 13 and turn 4, or not turn 13, but turn 3 and turn 14 as the big banking corners. But Tarzan, it totally has a ton of camber to it. That turn 12 chicane as David Baker comes down pit lane has a lot of camber to it. There's a lot of corners that are meant to be really fast here.
Yeah, and that was something a little bit more common back when this place was first built in the 50s. And the Tarzan and Hans Ernst had that banking. Well, Hans Ernst didn't because that was built in the 90s, but Tarzan definitely had banking. Hugenholtz had banking, but not quite what we see today, where they steepened it and made it progressive. But it sort of fell out of favor, I'd say, in the 80s and 90s, where you didn't see many banked corners on road courses after that. And they kind of put the anti-camber into a lot of them to try and challenge the drivers, discovered that wasn't as fun. And now we're starting to see just a little bit of a return to it on a few tracks, starting to implement that. Checking in on Daniel Holmer here. This is Garen Batten just in front of him in the sort of teal and black machine. It's a battle for the last step on the podium.
Homer's been closing it in a little bit. They are even on terms of tire strategy between the two drivers here, but it was actually a really nice lap out of Garen that last time by a 112.9. Daniel, who are riding on board with a 13.1, so pretty evenly matched. And when I look at their fastest lap of the race, it actually swings heavily to Garen Batten, a 112.3 versus a 112.8. Wonder if maybe it's more just down to the tire difference. I'm just now noticing that Garen is on those red tires, and Daniel here is on the mediums, the yellow branded sidewalls.
Here's the question I want to know is, Garen Batten is our only driver hailing from Australia and New Zealand, and is running on the podium, as I said. So if he gets to spray the champagne, does he do a shoey in a wooden shoe since we're in the Netherlands?
You know, I don't know, but because does he know how to spray champagne right side up?
That's why they do the shoey, you know. It's because it all winds up in the shoe anyway. So
it all makes sense now.
Yeah. Garen coming around. No, that was a pretty good lap. He's starting to pull away a little bit here from Daniel, as puts in a 112.7 over Daniel with a 112.8. So another 10th extended over him that time by little bits and pieces, pulling away. Ray Partridge, one of our latest to take a pit stop, and then he'll be back out. And now it is all jumbled up. We've got 3 drivers on hards. We've got about half a dozen that are on mediums, and then everybody else is running softs, trying to sprint as hard as they can. Again, it was expected that most would try to put softs on to get to the finish, but it's a little more varied than I expected.
And going through my information as Golightly narrowly gets down to the inside there in turn number 3, there are some differences in terms of strategies on what tire compounds are being used. But for the most part, everybody's within, call it a 5-lap, maybe 6-lap window of when they pitted. So I don't see anybody that is well outside of the box other than the color on the sidewall.
Jasper Eriksson running the mediums currently and is 16 seconds ahead of second place Ray Griffin. Now, for Fredrickson and Hampton on the hards, they could go to the end of this race, or at least we assume that they are trying to, and that may change those podium positions. But we have to wait until the next pit stops, which, let me double check our little chart here. We're expecting somewhere around lap 48 for most of the drivers. So we still have a little more than 10 laps to go to get to the expected point for most of them to come on in. But Jesper has been mostly unfazed, other than having to repass Oscar on his different strategy. He kind of ran off after his poor start.
Doing a good job. But this driver right here, Joe, I don't think these hard tires are working out. A 13, he has yet to go faster than a 13.0 at all at any point in this race. Everybody in front of him is doing 12s on the red or the yellow tires right now. So he extended that first stint. I thought that was a good idea, but I just don't see these hard sidewall tires working in terms of the pace that he needs.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was worth a shot. Maybe he was kind of going into unknown territory, didn't get to try this strategy to see how it would wind up in practice, and is just kind of figuring it out as he goes. Meanwhile, David Baker gets the DRS open. Josh Hampton is a sitting duck, both without the DRS and with the hards on, as David will take 6th away from him. And next is going to be another hards driver, Fredrickson, but he's 15 seconds up the road. But we'll watch that to see if he continues to reel him in.
So now this white and black car that is behind Josh Hampton, that is Mike Golightly. Going to try to get around this number 89 here. And there is a pretty big, let's call it a 6 or 7 lap difference on the tires right here. And not only that, but also Hampton on those hard tires, Golightly on those red soft sidewalls. Go around one of the slower lapped cars here and see where Golightly decides to go. This might be an opportunity. Actually has to get off of the gas, exiting turn number 10. Probably look towards the front straightaway to try to get something done.
It was close, it was tempting, but just not the right time. He's got to watch out for those sort of Lotus-looking colors on Josh Hampton's car. Really representing a classic scheme here in this machine, with him being a UK&I driver. No wonder it's pretty much British racing colors out there. Wow, really gains on him on the main straight. Golightly sends it in down into Tarzan, and he is going to be through. Made that look easy.
That was about 9 miles an hour difference between those two cars in terms of the closing rate on the straightaway there. Pretty impressive stuff, but I think that Josh Hampton is going to have to try to settle in. He is on those older tires compared to those two cars that he just got passed by. See if he can kind of find his rhythm out there again.
This is Garen Batten, and thought that he and Ray Griffin were maybe going to close up a bit, but it looks like that's not to be. Still about 2.5 seconds apart. The good news for Garen is it seems like Daniel Homer's not able to keep up. Daniel is on the medium tires, so he's might not be as fast now, but we could see him catch up a little later if Garen finds his starting to fall away. And as soon as I say that, that cuts down to about 0.7 of a second. So it must have been a bad corner for the 61.
Last lap time from Garen, a 14.3 Homer, about a half a second faster than that on identical laps in terms of their tires. I did feel that towards the end of the first stint, I thought that Batten was falling off maybe a little bit more than the other competitors, but he was able to get into pit lane at a reasonable time. However, these are the red sidewall tires. Remember, they started on the yellows. I wonder if he's just suffering a little bit more with early degradation in the car.
I was checking up and down the order real quick to see who our biggest movers are. Ray Griffin, up 8, is tied with Gary Thomas, who's also up 8. But Ray sits in second, Gary sits in 10th, and no shade on Gary, but moving up 8 spots and being on the podium is no mean feat, especially in this car. As we watch Garen continue to try to shake Daniel, but now it's down to 0.3 of a second under braking, as he had the DRS to help him down the main straight and help him pull in that 61.
About through turn number 3 here. Both cars look pretty good, pretty planted through there, so it's just all about hitting your marks through this, call it end of sector 1 into sector 2, up and down over the crests in the hills on this racetrack here, and then be very, very careful coming up to this turn number 9. In qualifying, that's where we saw a lot of the issues, and especially early in the race, that slower speed area of turns 9 and 10 were catching a lot of drivers out.
So only Holboom and Harper are officially out of this race now. I think Cardamon might as well be counted. It's been 10 minutes since he's been sitting down in his stall. Out of our 23 starters, we're down to 20 drivers left as we watch Golightly still chasing on Josh Hampton, coming up and around the new infield section of this track. You need good traction off this left-hander to get you as much speed as possible into the braking of Hans Ernst. But neither is able to find an advantage amongst themselves, as we have now well past halfway on this race.
They click a by rather quickly don't they, with these, call it minute 15 or faster lap times out here, and the pit stops are only about a handful of seconds, so not much stationary time no matter when you are in this race. Homer still trying to find his way around Garen Batten. I think that Garen has done such a tremendous job this race. Maybe didn't get the qualifying position that he wanted, but had that initial launch off of the green flag, was able to pick up a handful, and then he's just done a tremendous job this right here. He realizes when cars are faster, when he needs to put up a fight. That was a pretty big moment there, side by side. Homer finally gets through, but Garen just continuing to trudge along inside the top 5.
Now is where he could use that DRS as well to either fight back like he's doing now as we take a look at Go Lightly in pit lane, and Batten is back through once again. This has got to be frustrating for Homer. Maybe a poor choice of a place to overtake, giving Garen that great opportunity to return the favor.
I really think you nailed it right there, Joe. I thought that maybe Garen was being nice and letting Homer by into that turn 11 chicane, but I think you were spot on with saying, hey, let him have the position because I know the DRS zone is literally just up the road and I'm already on his bumper.
Out perfectly for him, and now Daniel's got to do it all over again. I'm sure he'll learn a little bit of a lesson from that last one. Go Lightly's been in for a minute, so that doesn't look like it's a scheduled stop. He must have had some sort of serious damage. We'll check and see if we can find out what happened to him in a little bit. Coming down to the braking of Hans Ernst this time. He doesn't try the overtake. Is he going to try and do the same to him? I know we've got a replay spooled, and I'm trying to see if this is enough. We'll go to the replay anyways. As this is Tom Dreiling, actually, so we're not going to see what happened to Go Lightly. As he comes down into the corner, slips up a little bit, goes high, and then the wheels just don't want to grip as he puts the throttle down.
It got a little dicey on the front straightaway between Homer and Batten this lap here. Batten went down to call it the middle of the racetrack. Homer went even lower. Decided to back out of it at the very last second. I think going pretty much all the way narrow on the entry to Tarzan, probably not the best idea, and happy to see Daniel back out of that one.
Yeah, I don't think that was going to wind up well. Just a little too shallow into there. Now we ride on board with Daniels. Finally getting the sun to come out. It's been a bit gray for much of this race, but it hasn't changed the track temperature too dramatically. It's down to about 88. It was up to 91 I saw a little earlier. So in Fahrenheit terms, it's had very minimal temperature swings. Maybe it'll heat up now if this sun decides to stay out for a bit.
And Joe, you were talking about how it's a beachside circuit. If we were there, I would definitely have the SPF packed, as we're going to see Homer use the DRS. Batten once again defensive to the middle of the racetrack, really deep along the outside. Can he get the acceleration phase? Here it is on the exit of turn number 1. Batten still down to driver's right, and now more ghost contact, but Homer somehow able to save the car. That was excellent car control.
That was miraculous car control from Homer. I can't stress how quick that right-hand flick through Gerlach is. And usually, if you get a bump, you are sent off into the wall like we saw earlier on. So great heads up to immediately be able to save that thing. Now he's got to make up about 2 seconds to catch back up to Garen Batten. Oh, the car might be damaged because he just had a little wiggle off screen there. Jesper Eriksson, who we see, is up to now 21 seconds ahead of the nearest car. This is appropriately a very Verstappen-esque run from him at his home track.
Who is loving this right now is Fredrickson back there in 5th place, who's slowly creeping up on Daniel Homer and Garen Batten. But I think by the time he actually catches that group, it's going to be the pit window for them again. So it's going to work out very nicely for Fredrickson. It's just going to be how well is he going to be able to hang on for the final 30 laps.
So let's see, what's his pace looking like? 13.4, 13.6, out of 14.3, may have been a bit of traffic. So we've got a replay. I wonder if this is that save with the ghost contact. Yep. So this is where they carry on side by side. Gerlach is this right-hander, and they didn't actually touch, but the sim thought they did due to just internet lag, and that's what sent him off. But somehow he kept it from becoming a worse situation.
I'm very happy that Homer was able to save that car, because it seemed like you could fit a whole nother car in between those two at that point. That's how big that ghost contact was. So just very gratifying to see them both still running on the racetrack.
I want to see this fight continue on. The unfortunate thing is I don't know how Daniel's going to react to what happened, because he's inside the car. He doesn't know necessarily that was ghost contact. All he knows is that he'll see the 1X show up on his screen. He'll know the car got bumped off, and probably not as happy about that.
This is a potential pass for position. Ray Griffin versus Garen Batten. Ray's done a really good job, and I'm honestly not quite sure how he was able to jump up in front of second place there. But
that's Gary Thomas actually behind him.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah,
okay.
Same color car, so that's why.
Yep. And so Garen is back there. There he is, just the next black and turquoise car, about 2.5 seconds back. But yeah, he's still in there in these cars. Back to my point, Joe, is that it's about 3 laps, maybe 5 laps at most, if they're doing it straight by the math off of that first stint when they come in for that second pit stop.
Exactly. So drivers who have been out for the longest at this stage, Josh Hampton, he's got 23 laps on his tires, but he's on the hard. And then it looks like Ericsson and Griffin have been out there for 21 laps, and Griffin's out on the softs. So this is definitely impressive out of him to be able to run them well. But we expected them to be at least able to do 24 laps here in this middle stint. Might be just a bit harder than the end of the race, of course, as we had a change for position between Fredrickson and Homer, it looks like.
See if
that
Homer
looked
can,
like an organized move.
I wouldn't be surprised. Remember, same team and also different strategy, call it. And Homer just kind of had the mistake. So if they're on the radio together in a Discord channel together, I'm not surprised to see that one. I just wonder how everybody else is going to respond to it. There's been a lot of contact, I shouldn't say contact, ghost contact between some of these cars when you get them really, really close to each other.
Yeah, so kind of don't blame Homer on that one. We don't know if his car is 100% after that contact either, so he might just be limping to the next pit stop to try and take his spare car. Let me double check to see if he has it. Yes, he still has his spare car, so that immediately fixes any damage, for those that don't know, in iRacing without having to waste any time. It's what it sounds like. It just basically is, it's like you hopped into a spare car and then off you go, and it's perfectly good with all the same tires and fuel, unless you change the tires, of course. But anyways, coming down into turn 1, now Oscar takes off after Garen Batten, has about 3 seconds to make up, to catch up to that podium position.
See what he can do with it all. I expect Ray Griffin to be pitting here in the next lap or so. Checking in on Jeff Schmeier for 11th and 10th place back here. Remember, Jeff was one of the cars that started on the alternate strategy. He started on those red sidewall tires and then went to the yellows. He is actually one of the very, very few cars on that medium compound on the racetrack currently.
He had a big lockup coming into Tarzan, though. Now, they don't have flat spots modeled in iRacing currently, but that still can overheat the tire a little bit and take some wear and life out of it, so he doesn't want to do that too frequently.
Oh. Sorry, Fredrickson just had a huge moment coming out of turn number 12. You were talking about overheating tires. He just roasted the rears on his car.
Oh, and that's not good, considering he needs to try and make these things last. Here comes his teammate, who's got the DRS, but as we expected, he's not going to try and pass him since he deliberately let him by a little bit earlier. So last lap for Oscar was a 14 flat. Ahead of him, third place was a 13-4. So, yeah, he lost a huge chunk of time to Garen Batten with that one little error.
And I might have been a little bit deceiving in saying that these hard tires need to be matching the pace of the other compounds earlier. As long as Fredrickson can make them last to the end, he can be 2/10, 3/10, 4/10 of a lap off pace, as long as he eliminates that, call it 20-second pit stop between coming down pit lane, changing the tires, and getting back out there. It's just going to be tough. We haven't seen anybody go past really 25 laps. I know the hards are meant to go as long as possible, but just when is that plateau and that cliff going to be, and how fast is everyone else going to be catching them in the mirror?
Yeah, exactly. So we hop on board with the 61, and he's pitting. Here we go. This shows you how fast these pit stops are. Let's see if we can hold on him through the pit stop. Remember, we're looking at 4.5 seconds to change all 4 tires and send him on his way. Now, we don't have a pit crew animated, but yeah, there you go. Up and then down. And, wait a minute. Did he not change the right-hand side tire?
I'm noticing that as well. He's got shiny on the left and not so shiny on the right. I think it might just be how they're being modeled and the sunshine peeking through the clouds.
Yeah, I think you might be right, but that is cool. I do love that iRacing actually models the difference between the new tires and the old ones, and take into account the type of tire. So if you watched, for example, a GT car put one on that wouldn't necessarily have that shine at the start, like Pirelli does with their specific F1 compounds that they run. So all kinds of little details that iRacing pay attention to on this.
Pretty neat, and I think that's kind of what we enjoy out of it, is finding those little Easter eggs, call it, and realizing, oh, that is exactly what I saw on TV. It's a pretty neat factor to be able to go out there and do it. So this is now second and third place. Fredrickson and Homer, they've just kind of slotted up the order a little bit as everybody is starting their second pit stop cycle of the day.
It's a battle for P2, sort of battle, air quotes around that. About 30 seconds behind Jesper Eriksson. So that now gives us a very clear picture of the difference between them. But he was, about 2 seconds behind Batten? So as we take a look at replay, and Batten is about 18 seconds behind them right now. Oh, and Kinchlow not able to get away with that one, as the nose has come off the car after hitting the tires, spinning out of Hans Ernst. But the point that I was trying to make, Joey, is so our bogey time, it looks like, is probably about 22 seconds or thereabouts, I guess.
I think it's about there. Yeah, about 20 to 25 seconds, somewhere in there. I think that Fredrickson was 3.5 seconds or so behind Batten at the time. But I think that Eriksson, I'm most impressed by Eriksson because he's the one who's extending it. Remember, he's gone yellow, yellow. He knows he got to go to the red, so he's just trying to make that red as short as possible at the end. As Hakan Schutt in the 101 gets on the gas a little bit too quickly, exiting turn number 1. Very similar to what we saw with Lynn Kinchlow, just too happy with that right foot.
I've seen a number of drivers spin like that. We haven't shown all of them, but there's been so many coming out of Tarzan that just have the car off and around, trying to get greedy with the throttle. Ray Griffin in third, about 10 seconds off of Oscar Fredrickson currently, so he's got a long ways to go to get up to that P2. But like you said, we don't know what will happen when it comes to the tire fall off, or that hard tire that we think the 955 is trying to get to the end of the race, whereas Ray is on the softs now, so the complete opposite end, and he put them on 2 laps ago, so he's got to carry those softs for another 20 plus laps. So we're looking at a 25 lap stint, so he's running it pretty much by the book on the strategy.
And that last lap from Ray, fastest lap of the race, the only car to go into the 111s, 2.5 seconds faster than Oscar Fredrickson up the road. Now, that will even out just a little bit as the tires start to wear in, right? He's not going to be as fast when he catches Oscar. However, there will still be a significant difference in the grip levels between the two cars.
We got another stopper. David Baker is in. He was on the softs, watching to see what happens when he comes out. If he'll be staying on the softs or if he'll switch over. I anticipate, with us being less than 25 laps to go, most drivers should theoretically head to the softs because, again, there's no limit on the tires and what compound of tires that you put on.
The further you extend it and the shorter you make this last stint, the faster you can go, right? And let's say if you got to do 25 laps on red tires like Ray Griffin right here, you're going to have to manage that final few laps, just like how you've managed the previous 2 stints. However, if you only have to do 20 laps on those tires, you can be more aggressive. You can be more aggressive into the brake zones. You can be a little bit more aggressive rolling onto the throttle and the minimum speeds that you're rolling through the corners. If you only have to do 15 laps, guess what? You can be even more aggressive on those tires. Who's going to be the last to pit and the fastest at the end?
By the way, we got an update as we watch Gary Thomas's stop on why we have lost Mike Golightly. He forgot to put enough fuel in the car, which I know sounds silly, but we have to remember that they have multiple setups probably for these things that they've put together, and he apparently put the wrong one in, and that has cost him a chance to finish because you actually cannot put fuel in the car once you start the race. What you set it up with is what you've got to try and make it to the finish.
That's a really interesting point. That completely slipped my mind that just put some more fuel in when you come into the pit stop, and I was just going to kind of relate to it. There's been so many times, Joe, that I have started a race in iRacing, and I'm like, holy smokes, I have got some race pace today compared to everybody else. And then the pit crew come on and says, hey, man, you're about to run out of fuel.
I'm trying to remember which team it was, but famously there was one in the 80s that at Brands Hatch, they were having just an incredible race. It was a team that usually was a bit of a back marker. They were fighting up at the front. They may have even been leading for a bit. And then suddenly, with still like a quarter of the race left to go, the car mysteriously ran out of fuel. There's a lot of tinfoil hats coming out. They were saying, that's a long ways to be wrong on the fuel. So some had a few thoughts, since it was a British team, on what they were exactly trying to do there that day.
It's amusing, but yeah, we've all been there. It can be simple mistakes, and in iRacing, I'll give even more credit to the drivers because guess what?
Sorry,
yeah, was that Ray Griffin right there? Yeah, no, that was off the track, and now we're off the track again.
Now, he made contact with the barrier briefly, it looked like, and then made contact with Redeker. So what state is Griffin's car in after that? Is it damaged? Will he need to bring it into pit lane? Obviously, it wasn't hard enough that he got a meatball flag, but, since he's already taken his pit stop, this is the last thing he needs right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it cost him that position to Garen Batten. Garen was only a couple seconds back, and so here's going to be the replay. Look at Redeker, the yellow car in front. He kind of is on the racing line. I think he was expecting Ray to go to driver's right, but Redeker was literally on the racing line. And then Ray just took it in too deep into turn number 10. He got contact from Redeker on the right rear end. That's what kind of pushed him out into the gravel. It's the red mist, Joe. It comes over that visor and you can't see through it.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure it wasn't helped by the fact that he probably had dirt and grass on his tires since he was just off the course, so probably wasn't stopping like he thought it was going to. I highly doubt. He's not the sort of driver to try and run somebody off the road intentionally, so just an unfortunate mess of circumstances, that one, and that cost him a potential podium. Garen Batten, though, is probably grinning ear to ear because he's now got about a second gap, and if he can keep that and extend it over Ray Griffin, he'll keep out of the DRS range.
So here is the math that's going to happen. Oscar Fredrickson in second place. He's doing lap times, call it mid-13s to low 14s, depending on if he's catching traffic. These two cars that we're watching on screen, Garen Batten and Ray Griffin, are doing low 12s right now. In fact, that last lap out of Ray was a 1:11.9, so that was a very fast lap. can they close in that 6.5 second gap over the next 15, 16 laps?
Well, it was at 10 seconds a bit ago, so they have cut it down a bit since we last looked at it. Will it be enough over the final laps? Will the soft tires have enough oomph in them all the way to the end? Speaking of getting to the end, I had mentioned at the start that Ludwig and Redeker did not set a qualifying time. They have been intentionally starting from the back. They are still 17th and 18th, which is last of those running. But both of them have gained a number of position, and they're both still running. So I give them credit for kind of taking maybe a conservative but a wise start as we check out Oscar Fredrickson being overtaken by Ollie McGowan. So he's getting his lap back from Oscar Fredrickson. That's how much pace that 955 is lacking on those hard tires.
Just no ability to attack as we get a GSRC replay of Ray Partridge. This is coming up into the turn 3 section here. Oh, such a shame. You had mentioned how fast that flick is in, call it turn number 2. I think it just got a little bit loose on him and he wasn't able to save it.
Yeah, it's very blind as well. It's a tricky one. You tend to need to be single file, hence why we were talking earlier about 2 cars going side by side being such a wild thing to see through there. But he is looking like he's going to be our latest retirement, joining Holbom, Harper, Cardamon, Golightly, and Kinchlow all out of this race. Redeker's stopped in as well, actually. Interesting.
I was just noticing, you know what, and he just went even faster, Joe. Another purple lap from Ericsson, a 1:11.0. I mean, he is putting his foot down in terms of the pace out front. He's got 20 seconds ahead of his teammate. He's already completed his final stop, and that last lap was 3.5 seconds faster.
Looks like Blomqvist took his last stop to get to the end. Garen Batten fighting back, not happy with himself for making that mistake. Ray Griffin just in front of him. Or actually, no, did Ray just make the pass?
That's exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened here. I believe it happened on the front straightaway. Griffin was able to take advantage of the DRS, had a tremendous run down into turn number 1, and textbook late braking maneuver back got him into 3rd place.
So I spoke too soon on Redeker. He is our latest retirement now, so ending his race. Ludwig is still out there. Looks like we might be able to talk with one of the drivers that we saw wreck out a little bit earlier, Lynn Kinchlow, who didn't get to see the finish of this one, but we had said at the start, you can forgive a few drivers if they had trouble. Lynn, what's your assessment in these Mercedes? Are they extremely difficult to drive, or is that a simple error?
That was just me having a lapse of concentration. There's not a whole lot of adjustment that you can actually do in the garage area. The team at Mercedes-AMG pretty much put together the car as best they could, and in terms of adjustment, there's a small window you can make it work. And at that point in the race, I had already used up my spare car and was just trying to make the hard tires work. So it was just me making an absent-minded error off the corner, and with the walls so close around here, there's just not a whole lot you can do once you go off. So, I mean, it is what it is. Just, I hate to end the season on a downer, but I'm just glad to get the all 10 starts to get the Ironman.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the hard tires that you were running. You might be able to give us some insight. We've been keeping an eye on Oscar Fredrickson. Now, he's trying to run a one-stop with the hards to the end. Do you think he can hold on to this P2, or did you feel like the hards were going off too much?
On paper, with information from last night's broadcast, nobody at the iRacing Grand Prix Tour at the top end was using the hard tires. It's one compound up. So what we would have as hards would be super hards, and so the difficulty that you're probably experiencing right now is keeping the temperature in the tires. At this point where the track was gotten up to 94 degrees Fahrenheit, there's a possibility that he could make the tire work, just trying to keep the temperature in it, but he also has to basically be frame perfect from here on out. He can't hit the curb excessively like I did. He can't really just... He has to also just maintain like where he's at right now. He's 24 seconds back. You know, if once Fredrickson comes into the pits, he might be able to get ahead, but it's going to be a hard road to hoe if he wants to try to keep that car in front.
And the other thing that we would love to ask you about is we love getting the feeds from you each and every race and seeing your radar system. Now, where did that come from? Where'd you get that software?
So I use Joel Real Timing, great little program. Joel Goose over in France puts that together, and he's kept it consistently up to date. Just a fantastic little bit. So it basically detects whatever range I want it to. So like anywhere from like a second to a second and a half back, to where then I could start kind of seeing how far back he is, and then as soon as they get alongside. I have it set up to where the sounds don't deploy, so I get an instant indication of where they are in terms of where their nose is. So like early in the race, I had a car dive alongside me and going into one, and I knew exactly where his front bumper. There's wings on these cars. It's been a long 12 hours. I digress, but yeah, it's a fantastic piece of software. I use it for pretty much everything in Sim, from the middle dashboard to an extra relative that I have on the left side. And just for today, I busted out another dashboard for the onboard, so y'all can see my hybrid system as it was working. So hopefully that was somewhat useful.
Yeah, we didn't catch that part. There was a lot going on during the first part of the race. And so, speaking of a lot going on, a pass from Batten on Griffin, and then a pass back, Griffin taking that P3 on him. So these two have been swapping back and forth, but they've now got two more cars catching up to them. One more thing before you go, and thank you for being willing to enlighten us on your software there a bit. It's down to the inside. That was a big look from Homer. We wanted to know, do you refer to yourself as the mayor of Kinchtown?
Absolutely not. Hinch can have that gimmick all to himself. Like, no, I want nothing to do with politics in any sense of the fashion, even real life, fictional, whatever the case. I don't care. I just want to get on the track, but my car is broken and I'm very sad.
Well, we'll let you go and wallow in that a little bit. Commiserations, and thanks for coming and chatting to us.
Yeah, thanks for letting me in.
That was Lynn Kinchlow. Big moment there, Joey, from Karen Batten saving it. Did you see the counter steer he had on that?
It has been a tremendous battle, really, between these three cars, Griffin, Batten, and Homer. Batten has had a lot of fight in him. It doesn't matter if he's given chase or if he's on the defense. I think that he's been pretty savvy with where those DRS systems are, or I should say DRS zones, and he's kept the fight very, very close.
So what was a battle for potentially P2 has now become more of a battle for P3, and they've got cars coming in behind them, getting very close, fighting with them as well, with Daniel Homer coming on hard. They've got Blomqvist in, but he is not for position. So three-way fight for third could become a three-way fight for P2, because Fredrickson is now only 1.6 seconds ahead. If I'm honest, I don't think the 955 is going to be able to hold on to this. This is looking pretty dire.
I just don't see it happening either. The only thing that he can hope for right now is just those other tires completely fall off the cliff in terms of performance, but we've seen it not be the case throughout the first two tire stints. So Fredrickson is either going to have to get a wide car or find some pace somewhere.
Around through Tarzan once again. Garen Batten, who was on the attack, now on the defense. Daniel Homer filling his mirrors. A little bit of a lockup coming through. Hugen Holtz up in front of them. We see the likes of Oscar Fredrickson, 9/10 of a second now, separating himself and Griffin. He's going to get the DRS next time they come out of Lyondike.
through this tricky 9 and 10 complex. And yeah, you see Griffin just right there, that orange car firmly in the DRS range. He's not going to be able to do anything about it along this short chute straightaway going into turn number 11 and 12, but it's now on the radar. Fredrickson has to be aware of it.
Surely, you would imagine so. It's 0.7 of a second between them. Remember, it's 1 second is the marker. And yeah, he was absolutely that close as they crossed the line. So Fredrickson is going to hold the inside immediately. He's taking no chances. Griffin is gaining fast. I don't think it's long enough or close enough for him to do anything, but that puts him right on the rear wing.
And there's a couple maybe defenses that Fredrickson could try to employ. It's not necessarily the easiest of just run in and run as fast as you can. You can try to maybe hold him up and park it in that turn 11 and 12 chicane section and then be able to really get on the gas to squirt away from the competitors. But it's tricky. If you don't get the run and you don't time it perfectly, you're just kind of putting yourself in an even bigger hole and asking to get past.
Oscar now roughly half a second ahead. So last time, like I said, it was about 6 to 7 tenths difference between them when they crossed the DRS line. We'll try and keep an eye on that gap when they come across it once again. Is very good under brakes. Ray Griffin looking like he's trying to get as close as he can, but he was too aggressive. He falls back a little bit. It's up to 6 tenths once again. They'll cross the line. He regained just a bit of it, but I think he's going to be too far back once again.
Fredrickson immediately on the defensive, but here comes the run. Mega top speed. There's a huge block. Contact between Fredrickson and Griffin. Out goes Griffin from the race, and there's a car turned around. I believe that's Fredrickson as well. That was a big-time block going into turn number 1.
They've all had problems. The driver that comes away with it is Garen Batten. He's now in P2. As soon as I saw that move, I'm with you. That was too late of a move, and that was a second move, if anything.
100%. He was on the middle of the racetrack. He faded back to the racing line, and then he went down to the inside as soon as he saw Griffin take that inside line. And yeah, a giant no-no in terms of race control.
Oh, virtual safety car. We're hearing it is a virtual safety car, so they are going to back the field up. It was 3 cars involved. So that's the first time we've had that happen in the race. Interesting, and that is the moment that probably some of these drivers that were involved in that incident were waiting for. Unfortunately, they were the incident.
This is a very peculiar situation now, if you're the leader, Jesper Eriksson. You've controlled the whole race. You just went by start-finish, and you did not pit. So this will be interesting. Everybody else is coming down pit lane, and Eriksson is still out there on 12-lap old tires.
I think he is about to have issues. Now, Daniel Holmer stayed out. Let's take another look at this incident. And obviously, we know what started it. I didn't see what happened behind them to bring the multiple other cars involved. So there's what initially started it. Car can't really stop from there. And he came across the track. I think that's what caused the secondary incident that was slightly off screen. And that's what made Fredrickson lose out there as he slid off the track. We'll take another look at it to see the second half of that and what brought multiple other cars down into it. So Garen Batten, I wonder if Garen Batten might have a chance at the win. Fredrickson, did he take his spare car? Yes, he did. So Oscar is also with Garen. He's now going to have soft tires. He's got a chance to try and attack and see if he can take the win. But it is now up to Eriksson and Holmer to hold them back. Here we go, Joey. Let's see what caused the second half.
So there's the move back to the racing line, and there was the block. And then here's the second incident.
Oh, well, maybe just saw it happening, braked a little bit too hard.
Yes. Both cars get rolling again, though. I'm not one to armchair quarterback it. If that's a multiple car incident, that's a multiple car incident.
Yeah. All right, we're hearing one more lap from race control, so they'll go around one more time, and then they will be released, which I'm sure Jesper is happy about. The fewer laps that he has to hold off these hard chargers, the better. But my goodness, he's going to be a sitting duck.
I think he can do it. Let's check out one more final replay here. This is going to be coming from Ray Griffin in the orange car. So you see the leader move back to the racing line. There was the second move, and just Ray Griffin was already committed down to the inside of the racetrack, had nowhere to go, and I understand that frustration for sure out of that driver.
Did he drive that back? Because he's actually still running fifth.
He must have towed it or something, because I don't see him on the lead lap, Joe.
So it must have been... Are you sure? Because I'm showing him on the lead lap. I think what happened is because they were running a slower pace, since it's under safety car, that maybe helped him lose less positions with the tow. Just an unforeseen consequence, I guess, that we didn't think about on that factor. So
and you're right. He is on the lead lap. It's just that he's so far behind from having to do that tow and whatnot. He is in turn number 1, coming to turn number 2, while the rest of the field is on the other side of the racetrack right now. But to kind of set the stage in terms of the restart, Ericsson is actually looking okay, in my opinion, because he's got a teammate directly behind him on similar tires. Wouldn't be surprised if that's a blocker.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I wonder if they made that call realizing what was happening, said, stay out, we need some help on this one. Here we go, getting ready to restart with all of 5 laps left in this race. This is going to be wild. It's 17 laps old tires on Homer, 13 lap old tires on Ericsson, while Batten is on freshies, but he's got a whole bunch of lapped cars between them right now. Fredrickson, we don't know if he's going to get a penalty for that contact that we saw. And green flag is out. Boy, that was a delayed start, though. Maybe Ericsson trying to prevent any sort of slipstream down the main straight. Cars desperately trying to get by these lapped cars into Tarzan.
And there is a whole mess of lap cars between Ericsson and then Homer and Batten right now, who are just now entering turn number 3. So, in my opinion, I think this is going to work out perfectly for Ericsson.
This is exactly what Ericsson needed right now. Fredrickson, who managed to get into third, is about 4.5 seconds back. That is massive to make up on him, but he does have those fresher tires. Is that going to be enough? They come around here at the end, or the second half of the starting the second half of the first lap back now, and it's going beautifully for Jesper Ericsson, who could take the title, but Oscar will try to deny him.
I think I saw Jeff Schmeier spinning around in turn number 9, like we've seen so many of those drivers do. And there's another driver off in that turn 11 and 12 complex right there, going through the gravel. So Jesper Ericsson out onto the front straightaway, grown the gap of nearly 5 seconds between himself and Daniel Homer, and nearly 6.5 seconds between himself and Fredrickson now.
Oscar's going to try his darndest to get ahead of him. He's almost up to Homer, but he's got lap traffic in front of him currently. That's Ollie McGowan, who's in the way right now. He should be able to pull off because he's a lapped car. As we check out Daniel Blomqvist and Jason Wallet. Wallet a little slow on the bottom side. Daniel takes 10th place. They're actually 2 laps down, something we haven't really covered. There's a lot of cars that have been lapped in this race.
They're having just the pace has been extremely fast out front, so if you make any sort of little mistake, it can easily drop you down rapidly through the order. Here's Oscar Fredrickson. He's the second blue and yellow car. He's trying to get around his teammate Daniel Homer directly in front. Let's see, going down into turn number 11. There's a late on the brakes. Can he get the car stopped? Just barely move Fredrickson up into second.
Oh, that was huge. He needed that to be decisive for him to try and chase down Jesper Ericsson. 3 laps to go when they cross the line here. Jesper trying his best to run away. He's got about 5 seconds. His last few laps, a 1:12.7 and a 1:12.0. So he is going pretty hard. That's pretty decent time. But Oscar Fredriksson, a 1:11.5.
And you're right. I'm not sure if he can make up 2.5 seconds, call it each lap, in order to get up there. As now Garen Batten and Daniel Homer going at it. There is a car directly behind Garen, that yellow car. That's Ollie McGowan, but that is not actually for position. Ollie's just getting up there and having a lot of fun in the race. Garen, though, is trying to steal away that final podium spot from the car directly in front of him.
2 laps to go at the line now as we watch Daniel Homer, the only other driver not to pit under that caution flag. Garen Batten behind him, trying his darndest to get in there, but could not make it stick. Homer holds him off. Ollie not in this fight for position, so this is mano a mano as they come onto the main straight. Surely the DRS going to make this a slam dunk.
I think that was perfectly executed from Batten. Now he's got the DRS down to the inside. There's a little bit of a block. I think he's missing the front wing now. No, that was just a little bit of net code, so he's still got a healthy car, but Batten up into 3rd place. I've seen a little bit of a trend here in these open wheel cars. There's lots of double moves going on down this front straightaway.
I think some of the, I don't know if they have specific F1 rules for this one, but if it is trying to follow F1, those are very much considered not kosher when you're running top-end open wheelers. But Josh Hampton now down in 8th position. He's got David Baker just in front of him, along with a couple lapped cars in behind. They accordion together now as they slow up through 89.
This is a good fight here. Hampton trying to get around Baker, like you said, and it is a lap down, but it is for 7th place position. And Ollie McGowan was that yellow car, the first car, 1 lap down. So even though it's just call it a lap and a half remaining, there are positions to be gained.
White flag is out. Final lap here for our leader. We thought maybe Ericsson had made a grave mistake missing the pit stop, but it's now expanded as Fredriksson seemed to have had his own problem and has fallen back. That or Jesper's trying to pick it up himself. Yeah, Jesper down to 11.3, 11.1 the last 2 laps. He is turned up the wick. He did have something in reserve. Homer still trying to take away the last podium position from Garen Batten here at the end of this race. This is the only battle really for position that we've got left in the top spots.
Coming through, this is where you're going to have the mistakes. Remember, this is the most treacherous area in these cars. Turn 9 and then feed it into turn 10. Ericsson, though, is already in the final chicanes. He's got one more breathe off of the throttle, and then he'll collect a checkered flag.
Not only will he collect a checkered flag, but a championship, as the number 37 is going to get to celebrate in style. He is your winner and your 2024 Majors champion here at Zandvoort.
A perfectly executed race from Ericsson gets him that win in that championship. He really was the car to beat on the pace, on the pit stop strategy. It all fell his direction today.
Incredible. And I have to give credit to Oscar Fredriksson. I thought that with that hard tire strategy, he surely was not going to bring it home in P2, but it worked out extremely well for him, especially with that caution allowing him to change tires to get to the end. And he dashed through to second, just didn't have enough to try and challenge his title rival. And credit to Garen Batten as well, who comes home in P3. Man, what a race. We got a fantastic one. Had all the staples that you want from a good F1 race, with a caution to kind of throw things into disarray, drivers taking differing strategies all throughout the race, in one impressive run from the number 37 to come home with victory. I wonder, this looks like this might be all of our Scandinavian drivers coming around here, or at least many of them trying to come together to celebrate a team victory as well, with SimRace Sweden team coming home with the points title as well. Let's hold on to see if we get celebrations from this 37, knowing that he has come away with a win and a title and maybe even a team's championship all in a single race. Yeah, it looks like we're going to get some fireworks here, Joey.
If you smell a delicious smell after the race, don't worry. It's not your tailpipe. It's a little bit of shake and bake.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, whole team is going to celebrate here today. Great stuff for them. And we'll let them burn that down on the front straight as we also go through our finishing order here at the end of this race. It was Jesper Eriksson, your victor here today, taking the top spot and the championship over Oscar Fredriksson, the man who was trying to stop him, who came home in P2, and Garen Batten, who is going to be the next to celebrate our podium celebrations there in the 61. Daniel Holmer was fourth as Ray Griffin wound up fifth in the end. I'm sure he's going to feel a little bit miffed as he could have maybe had a P2. Goen was P6 and David Baker was seventh, close between himself and Josh Hampton at the end by about a quarter of a second at the line. Gary Thomas was P9, and then Daniel Blomqvist rounds out your top 10.
In 11th place was Jason Wallet. Had a good day today, up 6 positions to finish in 11th there. Jeff Schmeier started on that alternate strategy and finished in 12th place. Hakan Schutt had a little bit of extracurricular activities, finished in 13th. Tom Dreiling, 14th. Ray Partridge back here in 15th. Michael Hogg in 16th. Ernie Ludwig and Mark Redeker were those final 2 cars that were scored here today. I think Ernie was the one who got to the checkered flag. Mark Redeker is going to be scored 26 laps down. And then, unfortunately, everybody else, including Mike Golightly, Jeff Cardamon, Sam Harper, as well as Cedric Holbom, had problems early in the race.
Well, looks like we've got our winner, Jesper Eriksson, ready to chat with us. Let's have a conversation with the newly crowned champion. Jesper, congratulations. Before you were able to collect that checkered flag, it looked dicey from up here because we thought those old tires would not be able to hold them off. How did you find that speed?
Well, for the first time ever, I used the tech node, and I knew this was a lot of lapped cars in between, so I just had confidence and put on the throttle and went away, I guess.
The other thing is after the start and Oscar, found himself falling backwards with a little bit of an error. I'm sure that took quite a bit of weight off your shoulders for a majority of the race. Did it feel like pretty smooth sailing throughout the rest of it? Because these are hard cars to drive.
Oh, for sure. They're super hard cars to drive, but it's so much fun. And for sure, yeah, when Oscar spun, first of all, I felt a lot of like, oh man, is this how it's supposed to end? So yeah, it was good for me, but just quite boring. But the race was fun. Cars are fun.
It looked like now. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, speaking of being tired, it's been a long season, a full year's worth to try and take your first title here in the majors. When you started this season, did you think you were going to be fighting for this crown?
Well, I had my expectations, and I hoped I could at least fight for it. But the top 5 and I would have been happy, and somehow I did end up first.
Anybody you want to thank for getting to spray the champagne and get to hold up the trophy today?
Well, of course, the whole team, just Oscar and Daniel and Cedric and Homer and just everyone in the whole team. Such an amazing team, and it's just plenty of fun to drive with them, and we helped each other so much, especially when there's so many different cars to drive and to figure out, especially the Dirt Oval. That was tough, and the Lotus, that was really tough, but super happy about it all and super excited for next season too.
I'm happy as well. Again, congratulations. That was Jesper Eriksson, our winner and new title holder here in the majors of Drivers Champion. From the thrill of victory to the agony of defeat, though, Joey has caught up with Oscar Fredriksson, who came by today.
Oscar Fredriksson, I know it's a little bit of a disappointment in terms of the driver championship, but you got to be happy celebrating with your team and that team's championship.
Yeah, for sure, and it's a teammate winning as well, so happy for Jesper.
So what happened there on the opening lap? Was it just cold tires or just a little bit too much speed?
Yeah, cold tires, I think, struggled more than I anticipated. Maybe grip went away a bit compared to practice or something. I don't know. The start didn't really feel like it did for me in practice. It was much less grip. So obviously got very bad start there, lost Jesper, and then in the dirt there behind and with the cold tires, I just went a bit too deep, went into the grass, got the dirt on my tires, and then just spun. So that was unfortunate, but happy with a decent recovery drive from basically last.
It was a fantastic recovery drive for sure. I know that I've really enjoyed watching you race all season. I think that today's performance was great watching you go through the field, but you definitely deserve to be up front. I wanted to get your take on that final safety car out there and the incident leading up to it from your eyes.
Yeah, the incident I think was just unfortunate. He came with lots of overspeed compared to me, and didn't anticipate him coming that far in the middle, let's say. I think it was a bit of an unfortunate one, so we both ended up with damage, but we had a fast repair, so I was able to take that and new tires and go back out during the safety car and fight my way forward.
Well, Oscar, congratulations on the team's championship, the second place in today's race. Go celebrate with your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was driver of the 955 here today, Joe.
And our last podium finisher was Garen Batten, who definitely had a roller coaster ride of a race on where he would wind up. Garen, we followed your progress, and it was fun to watch, but it seemed like at times you were on the aggressor, at times you were on the defense. What was it like from your perspective?
How was that start?
That too. Yes, let's start with the beginning. How in the world did you get that incredible start?
No idea. I've not hooked up one like that in any of the practices that I've done. So yeah, it just gripped and took off. And I think if I'd been one row in front, I might have even got to the lead. But so that was incredible. And then for the whole of that first stint, once Oscar spun out of the way, A, I knew I wasn't going to catch Jesper, and B, I also knew I was kind of out of position. I was in front of some guys that were faster. I was definitely feeling like I was on the defensive there for that first stint, especially once the tyres wore off a little bit. I just didn't seem to quite have that good a pace on the mediums. Then got undercut, so dropped back in position, and then started what was a race-long battle with Daniel. And if you're listening, Daniel, that was a brilliant race, and I'm sorry for the two netcode incidents that we had. Fortunately, they didn't do any serious damage, but I could imagine if he didn't realise that it was netcode, that he would have been pretty pissed. That was a roller coaster of a race for sure.
We were kind of curious, so with you hailing from Club New Zealand and Australia, are you planning on doing a shoey? And since we're in the Netherlands, is it going to be a wooden shoe?
I do have cans of Hollandia here to have the right beer, but it is 6 a.m. and I do have to take the kids to school first. Then I'll have one. It's been a crazy season with doing these races at stupid o'clock. But it's been good fun, and it's been a really good group of guys to race with all year. And yes, congrats to both Oscar and Jesper on that. They were clearly the dominant two for the season. And if my numbers are right, that's the championship by 2 points. That's nuts. So congrats to them on being the standouts for the year. And that safety car, I was kind of cheering. Well, cheering is the wrong word, but sort of the seas parted there with that incident that caused that safety car. With we were in a four-way battle for second, and suddenly all three that I were battling were gone. And I thought, this is pretty cool. And then Mike called the safety car, so I was like, you have to fight for it still. But sorry, I'm rambling now, but the adrenaline's still up.
I don't blame you. Yeah, we thought the same thing. We couldn't believe you sliced through and put yourself in such a good spot. Regardless, congratulations on a podium, and I hope we see you in 2025 for the majors.
Yeah, I'll definitely be doing majors, but might be switching regions, but occasionally with a celebrity appearance over here in what's been Atlantic and what will be European. And yeah, anybody that's listening, make sure you tune in for the calendar announcement in 53 minutes. It's going to be a good calendar. You'll enjoy it.
Oh, really looking forward to it. That was Garen Batten, podium finisher. Don't blame him if he switches over to the Australian region. But we also want to thank a few people before we go. Of course, the sponsor of the Majors Garage for all they do for this series. Simply click on a link in the description below and get use our promo code MajorsGSRC to get 10% off on that, as well as a big shout out to our charity, Best Friends. Big thanks to the Majors for helping raise funds for an awesome charity. Also, thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a moment. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Wow.